The Orphan. Episode 2 of Joko Anwar's Nightmares and Daydreams starts in the year 2024, where a man named Ios washes the corpse of a man named Bagas. He asks the other corpse washers what would happen to the little boy Bagas had adopted a week before his suicide. The corpse washers find Ios suspicious and kick him out. That night, Ios tries to convince his wife, Ipa, to adopt the boy that Bagas had adopted. Ios claims that the boy had brought immense wealth to Bagas in a week. Ipa refuses to join Ios in his attempt to get rich by using a demon child, but when their landlord threatens to kick them out of their house, Ipa gives in. The next day, Ios and Ipa go to the orphanage to bring the little boy named Saifin home. They are shocked to see that Saifin looks like a normal young child instead of the demon child they expected. Saifin hugs Ipa, and she feels conflicted about their decision to use the child to gain wealth. The warden of the orphanage tells Ipa and Ios that to get what they want from Saifin, they need to give him unconditional love. That day, Saifin points to a family eating a lavish meal in an expensive restaurant. Ipa feels guilty as she takes Saifin home and feeds him a meal of rice and fried egg. That night, Ios and Ipa dream about what they will do once they get the money. Just then, they find some cash lying on the floor. Ios asks Ipa to cook something nice for Saifin the following day so he can bring them more money. The next morning, Saifin finds a photograph of Ios and Ipa's son, Rian. Ipa gets emotional thinking about Rian. Ios brings some toys for Saifin to play with and goes to work. Ipa takes Saifin to work with him, where Ipa recalls how Rian had died by coming under a truck. Ipa watches Saifin playing behind the truck as it was backing up just like Rian and runs to save him. On their way back home that evening, Ios attends the funeral of their neighbor while Ipa and Saifin go back home. At dinner time, Ios joins them and notices how Saifin is calling Ipa mom. That night, Ios asks Ipa not to get attached to the boy as they are not his real parents. All of a sudden, they hear an object fall on the roof of their house. As it turns out, the object was a piece of gold ornament. The next day, Ipa sells off the ornament and pays off his landlord on the rent they are due. That night, Ipa finds more ornaments at the house that he sells off. The next day, Ipa and Ios take Saifin to a luxury restaurant where they order all the meals they dreamed of eating. Ipa forgets about Saifin's peanut allergy and he ends up collapsing on the restaurant floor. Ipa rushes Saifin to the hospital, but Ios is asked to pay the bill first. Ios fights with the restaurant server but leaves after paying for the food. At the hospital, Ipa tells the doctor that Saifin is allergic to peanuts. The doctor asks the two to wait outside, but Ipa and Ios fight about putting Saifin's health in jeopardy. Ipa accuses Ios of only worrying about Saifin because he needed money. The doctor tells the couple that Saifin is going to be okay. Ipa pays the hospital bill, which leaves him with no money again. That night, Ipa waits to find money at home but finds nothing and is disappointed. The next day, their house is leaking due to the rain. Ipa tries to cheer Saifin up and offers to take him out once the rain stops. Ipa asks Ios to come out for a chat, and the Ios confesses that she was happy with Saifin being in their lives. Ios adds that she did not want money and wanted to keep Saifin happy. However, Ipa tries to convince Ios that Saifin is not their son Rian. Just then, the roof of the house breaks further down, which infuriates Ios. He slaps Saifin and scolds him for not making them rich already. However, Ipa scolds him, stating if it wasn't for Saifin, they'd be dead. That night, Ipa finds no money or ornaments in the house and grows upset. Early next morning, Saifin wakes up and gets caught under the rumble outside their house. Ipa runs to save Saifin and Ios help save Ipa as more rumble falls onto them. The trio wake up inside a luxurious mansion, similar to what Ios dreamed about. Ios is happy, but Ipa notices that Saifin